Well, we're at the CCA Workbench for the Academy Sports and Outdoors Rigs and Techniques section. And I tell you what, Dave, marlin fishing is pretty specialized if you're going to specifically target them.
Yeah, you pretty much, if you really want to catch them, you got to target them, because if you go out there with not the right kind of gear, you might not make it.
You're going to end up stripped. That's the bottom line.
There are certain things you can do, though, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. You know, the ocean is a big empty, and all these marlin, he's a big predator, and he's got great big eyeballs, and just like all those pelagic fishes, he fishes by sight. Everything, you know, he wants to see it, and then he goes and eats it. He's not sniffing anything, and he really doesn't use his bill that much. A blue marlin, he's not the guy who comes up and whacks stuff.
He's not like a sailfish. He just comes up and goes.
Even sailfish. The sailfish, when he's doing that, it's because both of his eyeballs are on the edge of his head. And when he lifts the bill out of the water, he has to turn from side to side to see that bait. And that, when it touches his bill, he can go boom, and then it swallows it. Same thing with a blue marlin. They crush things. They grab it and they crush it, and that's how they eat stuff. And they'll eat whatever is the most around. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be squid. It could be little tiny red puffer fish. It could be needlefish. It could be whatever. If there's big balls of it swimming around, that's what they're going to be full of. Blue marlin is a very opportunistic feeder, and the main reason is because 99% of the ocean is a big blue empty. So he's got to eat when he finds something. And he's never seen anything moving faster, moving through the water, smaller than him, that he couldn't eat.
Right.
So he wants to eat everything. Now, if we're going to be using a live bait or something, he wants to eat a dolphin or a tuna if he's big. But any of these billfish can eat a bait that's 10% of its body weight. So an 80-pound white marlin can conceivably eat an 8-pound tuna.
Yeah.
And none of us ever use baits that big. We all think, oh, he'll never be able to gag that down. But they can. The bad thing about using those big baits is because the bigger the bait, the harder the hookup. And that's the same way with lures, dead bait combos with lures, and just a pure dead bait or live bait by itself. You know, a bigger bait is a harder thing for a fish to get down and hook up. So another thing we want to do, a trend that's been going along quite a bit lately, is use a smaller hook. You know, we don't need to use a 12-aught. You know, here's a great big lure. It's actually rigged for wahoo fishing, but I use this example. That's like a 10-aught or 11-aught, and the guys usually would put a 12-aught or something in that. A 10-aught hook is just fine for this, and the thin as you can get away with, you think, is the best. A single hook rig is even better than this double hook rig. Because you don't want to have one hook in the fish and one hook in the mate, or one hook in the lower jaw and one hook in the upper jaw. If he gets away, he can't eat anymore. It's a dead fish. The best hookup ratio comes with a single hook rig with a hook all the way in the tail of the skirt. So as long as the eye is in the tail of the skirt, it's IGFA legal. So, and that is that's a good little deal right there.
You're treating marlin almost the same way that pompano anglers treat pompano with a pompano jig, because they trim it down so that the hook is at the very end, and they get more hookups that way. So it's kind of interesting.
I reckon so. Yeah.
Well, what about live bait?
Well, you know, when we're using, you don't use a live bait until you know that there's a fish around, because you can't really move around a lot. You've either marked a big fish, you've seen one feeding on a weed line, or you're on a big mountain and you're marking fish on that mountain,
or a fad.
Pinnacle, a fad, oil rig, let's say, something that's there, and you know that there's a fish there. That's when you catch you a little tuna fish. A skipjack tuna being the best tuna bait there is, because he glows when he's alive, and a marlin can see him from a long way away. The next best bait's probably a yellowfin, then maybe a tuna, a little toonie, bonita.
What about something like a blue runner?
A blue runner's a good bait to throw, but a tuna's the better. Tunas, then maybe a blue runner, and then a dolphin. A dolphin doesn't live that long on a hook when you put a live bait out, but they will eat a dolphin. It's, as a matter of fact, if you're fishing out here at Jupiter, around those bonita schools, there's always a bonita school that spends the summer out here on the East Coast in front of these inlets. If you sat there every day and put a bonita out, you'd probably catch a blue marlin.
Gotcha.
You know, but we don't fish for blue marlins on the East Coast for some reason a lot of times.
Well, we're using heavy leaders.
Right.
You know, what size leader do you like to throw?
A 200-pound test is fine, but this is a thing right here, dispelling the myth. You don't have to have a 50, like Jimbo said, to go catch blue marlins.
Right.
Tons of blue marlins have been caught on 30 and 40-pound gear.
And definitely white marlin can be caught on that gear.
Oh, definitely. But tons of blue marlins between 100 and 300 pounds.
Okay.
All it takes is a guy who's running the boat who knows what he's doing. When you hook a fish on 30-pound, you go to the fish. You don't sit and wait for the fish. We don't back up to the fish. Yeah. We turn the boat and we run to the fish.
Race to the fish.
A marlin angler should be a line retriever. He's not a winch. We're not going to winch a 300-pound fish to the boat with 40-pound tackle or 30-pound tackle. We have to go get him. He's going to come up and start jumping. We want to move the boat, position the boat to haul butt until we get there. Right when he stops all that running and jumping and messing around, because as soon as you hook a blue marlin, he's going to take off. Yeah. And he's going to take off jumping and jumping and jumping and jumping. And if you're backing up trying to get to him, you're never going to get to him. You're just going to keep backing, and he's going to get all the line off. So what we want to do is we want to turn, and when he's done and he's exhausted, like after you run a 440, you put all the drag on him then, and he'll roll right over.
So it's just kind of like the way that small boaters like myself who are in bay boats, like the way we chase down tarpon on the beach.
Correct.
It would be almost the same kind of thing. You're just dealing with a much larger predator.
Right. Well, even, tarpon, 150-pound tarpon, 100-pound tarpon.
Had 150
that's a big, he's as big as a marlin.
Yeah,
so
you're right.
I would do that all the time. As soon as I hooked one, I would go chase them down. I'd run them down. I'd run them until they tire out, and then put all the drag on them.
Then hammer them.
Hammer them hard.
Let them do that marlin stuff, and then get on them.
Dave,